Oh man, Diablo 4 open beta weekend. The true open beta, not the pre-order open beta from last weekend. The progress did carry over, and I have managed to do quite a bit. I have definitely 100% of the beta in terms of all content. The only thing I haven't done is I did not level a druid to 25 and I did not level a barbarian to 25. But I decided instead to go ahead and min-max a couple characters. So the first character I made was a rogue. Love the gameplay style. I played a bow heavy spec, very well implemented, very cool. This was actually my very first playthrough was on this character. I did all the story, as much of the side content as I could. And then I made a sorceress, a little bit more min-max gameplay, a little bit more completionist focused. I got all of the Shrines of Lilith, did the rest of the side content that I hadn't done, and then started working on getting the gear honing put together, hunting down aspects, getting a build put together, etc. Then the open beta weekend happened, the true open, and I made a necro, and oh my goodness, they kick serious ass. This character is heavily min-maxed by far, and it slays everything. But all in all, I'm super impressed. We're gonna jump in game here, and I will show you. I will show you what I've managed to accomplish. All right, so this is my necro. First things first, I'm gonna go ahead and go over my gear and my spec, so I can kind of archive this iteration of the necromancer because I suspect that it's probably gonna be nerfed. I hope they don't, just because it's kind of tough to balance when the max level right now is 25. This is not even close to end game. This is literally just beginning of the campaign, early leveling. So we're going to be focusing on just the aspects. The gear, not really that big of a deal. The aspects, however, really do open up the build. So on my helmet, I have the increased maximum skeleton warriors by 2, which is this row of skellies in the front. They're called Reapers, this specific set. And I'm running them with the chance to carve off corpses, which complements my corpse explosion setup. Now, there's usually 4 of them. Obviously, that is not the case. Here I have 6. On the chest piece, I have maximum number of skeleton mages by 2. So instead of 3 bone mages, I have 5 bone mages. And on the bone mages, I am running the cost of the attacks that the mages do to themselves. When they attack, they hurt themselves. It goes down to 10%. And then after being alive for 5 seconds, they do 40% increased damage. So these are very nuke-heavy, damage-centric mages, whereas the cold are a little bit more focused on slowing and freezing, more of a control-based skeleton. And then the shadow is also more of a CC-centric, with a just kind of like a hybrid between the cold and the bone. So again, I have 5 of those. On the gloves, this is just a damage amp. I don't really have a lot of spells that will use up my essence because corpse explosion doesn't cost anything and the skeletons don't cost anything. They just require corpses. So by keeping my essence max like this, I can increase the damage of my skills by up to 34% when that's full. So this is just a massive damage ramp for me just all around. On the legs, this is more for survival, especially when I'm doing large pulls. So I heal for 3.8 life per second for each enemy close, up to 48 life per second. Now, I only have 558 life, and then I am also using Blood Mist, which is the center point of the build we'll get into in a second, but that also makes me immune for 3 seconds. And obviously being around a bunch of enemies while in this form, I'm healing on top of healing from Blood Mist. I am extremely difficult to kill, and I'm unkillable when I'm in this specific form, so it's kind of like an instant heal every time I use it. And then on my boots, I have Blight. Defiled area when spawned pulls enemies in on the area affected. Blight is one of the abilities I have that costs essence to use. The idea behind this is it creates a little pool on the ground, and when enemies stand in it, my minions will do more damage, and they take damage over time. And then that specific aspect causes all enemies around it to be pulled into the center of it. So it just kind of concentrates that damage and allows me to handle the AoE portions of my spec much more efficiently. On my weapon, my skeletons gain increased damage while alive up to 56% after 10 seconds. So with all my skellies up, this is a huge damage ramp again. Just kind of playing into that summon heavy style, and they absolutely shred. My neck, this aspect particularly is kind of the center point of the build. Blood Mist triggers corpse explosion on surrounding corpses. When Blood Mist detonates a corpse, its cooldown is reduced by 1.2 seconds. Now, my Blood Mist cooldown right now is 19 seconds. So every time a corpse explodes, I'm getting 1.2 seconds of that shaved off. And keep in mind that while Blood Mist is active, I'm also spec'd into it creating a corpse every second that it's active, as well as it triggering all of the corpse explosions of the corpses that are on the ground, which my Reapers can create. Every single Reaper, every time he attacks, has a 15% chance to create a corpse on top of anything that I kill. So it kind of, there's this ramping effect. When I have a ton of corpses on the ground, this specific effect is just insanely strong, and I can completely clear areas in a second by just having this massive ramp of corpse explosions. On my ring, each time one of my summoning minions attacks, he gets 14% attack speed for 3 seconds, and that goes up to 42%. So as my minions start attacking, as the skellies start attacking, they get stronger. They get faster. And then the final one I have is Blood Mist. Leaves a trail that lasts for 4 seconds and deals 72 shadow damage per second to enemies who stand in it. And the movement speed penalty of Blood Mist is no longer a thing. So I can move at my normal run speed while in Blood Mist, and I leave behind basically a damage over time trail. And this is, again, because Blood Mist is the center point of the build, it just allows me to kind of capitalize even more on a lot of that damage. Now, in terms of the spec, it's actually a super simple spec. I was running a Bone Splinter heavy. Instead of running the skeletal damage on my main hand, I had a base attack speed increased by 60%, and I was using Bone Splinters. This hits insanely hard when you have it on a two-hander, and then with that 60% increase at base attack speed, I was actually attacking faster than I would have with a one-hander. So I was just insane amounts of damage. Single target damage, this is pretty big. And then I double spec this going up the top left side of the tree. I did Defile, again, for the kind of the gathering capabilities with that aspect to get everything grouped up to help bring out even more with my Corpse Explosion. And then I have a Slow, and this Slow is also beneficial to Corpse Explosion because Corpse Explosion will do 10% increased damage to any enemies that are stunned, slowed, or vulnerable, and that all stacks. So if they're vulnerable and they're in my Blight, they're taking 20% increased damage from a Corpse Explosion. And down here, Blood Mist, again, the big center point of the build. It's Necra's only movement ability. I wouldn't really consider it a movement ability. It's more of like an immunity, like a bubble. And then I have the top left tree on that, which allows Blood Mist to produce a corpse every second that it's active, and it lasts for 3 seconds. So I'll get 3 corpses out of it. 2 of those 3 corpses can be used to reduce its own cooldown with the aspect that automatically triggers the corpse explosions. And then I was running max corpse explosion. I kind of transitioned slightly away from that just to see how much damage my minions could actually do. And this is kind of a happy middle ground that I had found because I was already full clearing areas with corpse explosion anyway. So I thought maybe if I made my summon stronger, the single target boss damage that the corpse explosion struggles with, I could shore up that weakness by making my summons insanely strong. And of course, I did the full spec into this, so the radius increased by 50%, again, makes the AoE stronger. And then this is that effect I was talking about earlier, where enemies that are slowed, stunned, or vulnerable, I get 10% increased damage. I went into the passives on this one. So consuming a corpse grants 3 essence, not a big deal for me. It is useful if I had thrown down a bunch of blights right away. I can basically instantly get all of my essence back because I will wait to use Blood Mist, you know, until there's a significant amount of corpses, so that way I get the cooldown reduction to basically reset the cooldown of Blood Mist. And then this one, every time I consume a corpse, I get a 12% damage increase. This is a pretty big deal because I'm constantly consuming corpses, both not only for corpse explosion, but also for buffing my minions and healing my minions as well. So this is kind of like a permanent 12% damage boost that I can just maintain. And then I just did passives, Skeletal Mage Mastery, so damage and life of my mages increased by 45%. And then in the final tree, I did every 5 seconds, Skeletal Priest Healing will heal your skeletons for 60% of their health. This is not necessarily needed. I'm doing this because the Bone Mages, when they attack, they chunk their health down, and it's tough to keep them healed up without having to resummon. So I wanted to see if I have this ticking every 5 seconds and all my summons are getting 60% of their health, the amount of time I'm needing to spend upkeeping my summons is a lot lower than if I was, if I didn't have this and I had to manually heal everything. So that means there's more corpses available in order, for corpse explosions and blood mist usage. And then the one passive I did miss that I do have is this guy up here, which is just the Skeletal Warrior Mastery. Same as the Mage one, increases the life and damage of my Skeleton Warriors by 45%. So the build is summon heavy with as much damage ramp on the summons as possible and a corpse explosion AoE centric style. So single target, it's all summon based. It's all maintaining and healing my summons. And then big AoE packs, open world clearing, elite pack clearing. It's all about the blood mist. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump into a dungeon here so we can actually, so I can archive what this actually looks like and plays like just for archival's sake. Because like I said, I have a feeling that this is going to be nerfed. But let me get over to the dungeon. Yeah, we'll be back just a sec. All right, so we are in Dead Man's Dredge. This is one of the better dungeons to farm during the beta because there's a lot of elite packs. So we're just going to go ahead and clear this dungeon just to kind of show you the capability of what the Necro can do. So as you can see, if you watch the cooldown of my Blood Mist, when I hit these groups, it's just instantly off cooldown again. And every single one of those explosions is a corpse explosion. I mean, it shreds. It absolutely shreds. A triple elite room. Man, this is gonna be sick.
I'm not ready.
Didn't even need the conduit shrine. I forgot to loot it. I was like, I missed something. Go and grab this. So the purpose of this is just to kind of showcase the AoE potential that this build is. When I finish this dungeon, I'll actually just pop into another dungeon and show the single target damage versus like a big boss, an end boss of the dungeon. So you can see the skeleton, the minion type advantages it has in terms of how it handles bosses. Because this corpse explosion style and this blood mist style requires quite a bit of corpses in order to really work.
ready yet.
So without those, the damage suffers significantly. Sometimes this room has issues letting my summons in. Oh, it can be a little bit weird. But you saw there when we got down to the last few mobs, wasn't a lot of corpses on the ground. Couldn't really utilize that corpse explosion and blood mist properly. Let's see if we get an event. Nope.
I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet.
So as I mentioned during the spec, kind of how the gameplay flow of this works is blood mist to cause a chain reaction of corpse explosions, but the spec of blood mist itself will also create the corpses. Every second it produces one. Well, the very last corpse it creates doesn't get consumed and explode. So what's beneficial about this is when you're done doing an entire group, you're guaranteed to have one corpse left over to heal your skeletons and get them back, you know, if their health is low, if it's low.
Bless you.
So again, consumes everything. You got that one left. Use it to heal. And that heal, when you cast Raise Skeleton again, when you already have all of your skeletons out, you empower your minions for 5 seconds, increasing their damage by 20%, and you heal them for 10% of their max health. So having that additional corpse at the end can kind of help prep you for the next little encounter. As you can see, just absolutely shreds bigger elite mobs.
You're a saint.
All right, coming down to the end here. And then we'll have the little final boss pack, which will spawn right on top here. And during this, I'm actually just going to let my minions... I'm just going to let my minions kill him. I'm not going to attack at all. So, yeah. Pretty insane. Alright, I will jump over to the final boss of another dungeon. A more traditional boss. That was more of like a little elite pack or an ending pack. But, yeah. Let's just go ahead and cut on over. Alright. We are at the end of another dungeon here. So this is just single target boss DPS. I will not attack the boss at all. So very significant. The minions are pretty strong. Now again, if I'm fighting there, if I would have blood misted there, that would have been a significant amount of damage. Using my my bone splinters with the spec that I'm in. Each splinter has a 20% chance to make the enemy vulnerable. So by being close to him and hitting him with all three, that's a 60% chance to make him vulnerable. When he's vulnerable, he's going to take considerable more damage. So it's the build itself, I feel like, is super well rounded for AoE clearing. It's unparalleled. I think it's by far the best of all classes in the game, at least at this point. Whether that stays that way when the actual game comes out, I don't know. But as it stands in the beta, I don't think there's another class that can clear quite as quickly as the Blood Mist Corpse Explosion build. And then in terms of single target damage, the Rogue and the Sorceress are super, super fast, but I don't think it's significantly quicker than what you just saw in terms of like if I was fighting as well. I feel like the clear time there, I mean, you're talking about a second or two. So again, how this translates into the later in-game components, I'm not sure, but I'm very, very happy with the condition that the Necro is in right now in the beta, and I hope that Blizzard doesn't nerf it into the floor. All right, I will see you guys at launch. Take care.